Welcome to mediamelanie TV. Today I'm back to talk about It, Welcome to Derry on HBO. The pilot episode is finally here, and just initial reactions wise. The real standout for me was the opening scene. We had Maddie in the movie theater, he gets chased out, and is hitchhiking with the pacifier. Those two things seem a little bit strange to me. But the family he gets in the car with, they seem pretty normal. He says, I just want to go anywhere but Derry. And they say, oh, yes, no worries, son. We're going to Portland. Well, that is in fact not where they were going. And things got pretty wild pretty quickly. We start out with the Cold War content on the radio, establishing us here in this 1962 era. But once the daughter started eating those livers out of the container and playing around with her bloody fingers, I'm like, what is going on here? And then the parents start talking about their daughter as a harlot, and the son starts spelling all of these words, and they get increasingly inappropriate as the mom starts calling them out. So it seems like this perfect nuclear family sort of veneer gets ripped open quite literally when the mom gives birth to the shape-shifting evil fear of it. And we see little hints of Pennywise in this opening scene as well, with the son's eye, his teeth. It is completely giving fear, but we don't actually get to see Pennywise here in the first episode at all. In fact, I've heard that we may not get him right away. I'm just hoping we don't have to wait too long, because there is a fine line between build-up and tension, but also leaning into what this It franchise is really all about. And just the horror and gruesome nature of that opening scene. The demon baby flying around attached to the actual umbilical cord, and the pacifier, it flies out of the car, and it almost mirrors Georgie and his boat that we saw in one of the It films, which I think was a pretty clever callback. Seriously, watching that demon birthed from the mom was incredibly gruesome, and I thought they were just a nice family. So to start getting into the metaphor of things are not always what they seem on the surface, that there is always evil lurking underneath, is a nice way to establish this theme of what we know as Pennywise, who haunts the sewers of Derry. And I've got to say as well, I think the big set pieces, they are totally giving 1962. The set, the wardrobe, the background anxieties of the Cold War, they do a really great job establishing that. There's quite a bit of table setting going on here. Something I would have liked to see was the Hanlon family coming with Leroy in this first episode so we can get to know them more. But I also think that is very intentional, so that way we can get to see Leroy, who is actually the grandfather of Mike Hanlon from the It films. And fun fact, he, in an older version, an older actor playing him, actually appears in the opening scene of It. And because we're not meeting the family right away, I think that also helps set the tone for them truly being outsiders. Because they are outsiders, they have maybe a keener eye for all of the things that definitely seem pretty alarming in this seemingly idyllic town of Derry, Maine. And I've got to say, I did watch the recent two It films, 2017 and 2019. I watched the It miniseries from 1980, back in the day. It's been a long time, but I've never read the book. But I think anybody can watch the show, whether you are a newcomer to Stephen King or you are well versed in the lore of It and Pennywise. We're off to a promising start. I would give it a 6-7. It's not the best thing I've ever seen, and the fact that for me the opening 10 minutes or so was stronger than the rest of it, I think the movie theater scene was meant to be this big, horrific situation. But for some reason, at least for me, it didn't hit as hard as birthing the demon baby flying around by the umbilical cord from the car scene. So it is a strong start. I actually enjoyed the child timeline more than the adult timeline, but I think too, it's because we really didn't get to see a lot. I think they maybe jumped the gun a little bit with the masked men attacking Leroy in the military quarters. I would have liked to have known a little bit more first about what this secret operation is, and they're here asking for the B-52 specs, but wouldn't they rather know what's going on in that secret building? I think it was maybe just a little bit too soon. And also there were, 4 of those guys beating him with a metal pipe, and then the other guy just runs in and they're able to chase them off. I think in the real world, he would have been beat down, and there's no way he would have made it out there without actually sharing what these people came for. All right, before I get more into my review of It, Welcome to Derry Episode 1, please be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I am so close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. It's been my goal by the end of the year. and I'm almost there. So every time you watch, you like, you comment, it just helps me get one step closer to my goal of becoming a full-time TV content creator. And I'm also talking about some other shows right now, finishing up Only Murders in the Building. I just recently finished Gen V. And I'm also going to be covering the Talamasca in the Anne Rice universe. And actually, I'm really curious which one of these IP legends ends up reigning supreme here during spooky season, given that they are both based on well-known authors and they're both giving spooky. Coming in November, I'll be covering Maxton Hall on Prime Video, which is a teen drama. If you're into The Summer I Turned Pretty, you may want to check that one out. And then come December, Fallout on Prime Video, starring Ella Purnell, who is Jackie on Yellow Jackets. And I actually just dropped a full season review of season 2 of Nobody Wants This on Netflix. So if you watch season 1, definitely check that out to see if it is actually worth your time and whether or not you should stream it or skip it. All right, back into the review. I'm going to start with the highs here. Even though we didn't get to see a lot of Leroy here, I think Giovanna Depo, who plays that role, established himself as an immediate strong presence, and I'm thinking he will obviously be a very grounding factor there in the adult storyline, which I think it needs. I did appreciate seeing James Remar, of course, from Dexter, and most recently, Dexter Resurrection. Love him. And I love just how, in general, this lineage of the Hanlon family, of course, does tie into the 2 recent films in the franchise. All right, in terms of the kids' storyline, I do think it is definitely giving a 60s Stranger Things, but in terms of standouts of the children, first of all, a lot of them didn't actually make it out of the first episode, but I am so glad to see that both Lily did and also Ronnie, who I think was a real standout right out of the gate as well. I think that Lily's friend Marge is also going to be a big part of this. Actually, it's funny because if we're talking about Stranger Things, did anybody else see like a little bit of Barb in that character? I mean, are they completely trying to be Stranger Things? I'm not saying they are, but I'm also not saying that they're not. One thing I absolutely hate to watch, but I think they did a pretty good job here, is kids being bullied. This poor girl, Lily, her dad died in a manufacturing plant for pickles, and the kids had the gall to put jars of pickles in her locker so they fall out and she smells like pickle juice all day. Get out of here. Bullies are the worst. Unfortunately, I think it's just getting worse with the presence of social media. So I hate to watch that because, like, why are we bullying a poor girl who lost her dad in a very tragic way? I am hoping that she ends up surviving the season, and obviously she's going to be a dominant presence here in fighting the manifestation of it, whichever form it's in, and hopefully Pennywise pretty soon. But with Ronnie and Lily both surviving that movie theater massacre, I think that trauma bond is definitely going to give a strength of their friendship as well. And I'm really curious to see how these two end up fighting in this sort of early iteration of the Losers Club. I did think it was super creepy when Lily was in there taking a bath and she's looking at the turtle charm that her friend Maddie gave her. Maddie, of course, being the kid who disappeared in that opening sequence. The finger coming out of the drain and the song, super creepy. And again, it's nice to build this tension and not have to actually see the evil Pennywise right away. But I want more of that. I want to see Bill Skarsgård. I want to see Pennywise. And hopefully, I mean, there are 8 episodes in total. If we don't get to see him until episode 3 or 4, I'm not going to be thrilled. But just in reading about the show, it does seem like that could possibly be the case. And I'm wondering, is that going to be a deal breaker for fans of Stephen King who are coming to this show specifically to see Bill Skarsgård reprising his role as Pennywise? All right, in terms of some of the lows, did anybody else get completely creeped out when they saw the skin lampshade with the faces on it after the Jewish family is having a dinner? And then he's talking about the skin of Jewish people in the Holocaust having been used to make lampshades. I was 100% horrified. And don't get me wrong, I love horror. That may have been just a step too far. And I recently reviewed Ed Gein Monster by Ryan Murphy over on Netflix. For me, this was giving more Ed Gein than it was Stephen King. And yeah, it was super creepy to watch. I just don't think they necessarily had to show us after they told us because honestly, just hearing about things horrific like that are enough to hear about. We don't necessarily have to see every single thing. But at the same time, it is feeding off of fear. That's the whole manifestation of it as a whole, right? It feeds off of fear, especially of kids. Unfortunately, this kid did not make it out to see another day. And how horrifying is it that that is one of his last memories as a child? Absolutely deranged. All right, another low for me. They have been teasing the Dick Halloran character from The Shining Since news of Welcome to Derry started, it is obviously another character here in Stephen King lore, but we only got to see a glimpse of him. I think if they really want to solidify this adult storyline as something meaningful and impactful, it wouldn't have hurt to give us a little bit more of Dick Halloran aside from, just a glance. I want to know more about his character. Obviously, he's going to be feeding into whatever they're doing in the secret building, which I'm assuming is investigating the presence of it, along with whatever technologies they're using here during the Cold War. And poor Leroy, right? He just came back from Korea. He barely survived in one piece. And James Remar's character is like, hey, we're going to, put you in the B-52. We're going to fly you right into the heart of the enemy once again. And I couldn't quite gauge if he was happy about that because he had said he didn't get to finish the mission, or if he's feeling maybe a little bit nervous about it. What do you guys think? All right, let's talk about the movie theater scene. Something I think that actually worked well in that I enjoyed seeing Maddie stuck inside of the Music Man film. I thought that was really interesting, and they were able to somewhat communicate with each other. But after that, things got a little bit haywire. I think maybe if I had to pick a favorite part of that besides seeing Maddie in the Music Man, it would probably be Lily at the end realizing that she's holding a hand of the little sister. That was pretty tragic to watch, but it also happened so fast. I like the way that they built up a little bit more that opening sequence with the demon baby flying by the umbilical cord. I think that was the strongest part of the entire episode. So from that standpoint, it was a little bit of a letdown that it started on such a high. And I mean, yeah, it was okay. It wasn't, the best thing I've ever watched. Was it giving horror? Absolutely. The storyline, though, I'm not really sure how they are going to meaningfully connect the adult and the kid storyline without seeming a little bit too contrived. But some of these themes overall did land. The image of the nuclear family, this perfect idyllic town with evil lurking under the surface, the metaphor that they immediately established, having that seemingly perfect family who obviously turned into a manifestation of complete evil, that did a great job setting the tone for the story that they are going to be telling here. And along with that, the Cold War paranoia and dread. We definitely got that at the school. We had the turtle. And by the way, the turtle is another little Easter egg in the whole Stephen King universe. But the duck and cover. I mean, I live in California. My kids have to do earthquake drills. And these days, the poor kids have to do active shooter drills. So it seems like no matter what era we're in, the poor kids are sort of having to experience this fear in different ways. And here it is about the Cold War, the Russians, and everything that's going on at that time. So overall, just moving into the season and some questions, I really want to see them connecting the dots between whatever is going on at this military establishment to what is going on under the surface of Derry. In the trailer, we did see the military going in underground. So in addition to whatever they're doing for their technology to fight the Russians, obviously, there is going to be some tie-in with them trying to fight it, but I actually prefer when we have the kids fighting it. I have enjoyed the kids storyline so far. I do think it will be interesting because obviously we need the introduction of Leroy's family and his child to sort of get into the group and start figuring out what is going on. And now that we have Ronnie and Lily very much anchored in fear. And apparently, I'm not going to spoil anything, but from what I've read, Lily's dad gets caught up in something, and she's also simultaneously not only fighting this manifestation of evil, but also trying to defend her dad. And a couple of Easter eggs. We saw the Paul Bunyan billboard. Of course, we know that in one of the It films, Paul Bunyan does end up becoming an evil monster that takes on some of the Losers Club. I mentioned the turtle, who's not only the school mascot, but also on Lily's charm bracelet, which was a gift from her friend Maddie. And it's also interesting because Lily really does seem the most alarmed that Maddie's gone missing. They did establish that his family life may not have been great, but it really makes me sad when a kid just isn't missed all that much. And then did anybody else notice Alvin Marsh was on some of the graffiti in the school bathroom? That, of course, is Beverly's abusive dad, who I 100% hated. And every single time they brought him on in the films, the way that he talked to his daughter, touched her, it 100% just disgusted me. I think it was a smart Easter egg, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of them. So if anybody else noticed anything that I didn't catch, definitely drop it down in the comments and let me know. Well, that's it for my review today. Remember, I'm also covering the Telemasca, and I am dying to know which one of these series is going to outperform the other one. If you're watching both, I really hope that you stick with me and you help me track both of them in the comments, which one is doing it better, if you will. Of course, Telemasca is in the world of Interview with the Vampire. I love Interview with the Vampire. I'm hoping that I like them both equally, but I do think that it'll be an interesting point of comparison to see. I mean, they're dropping on the same exact day. So I think in one aspect, they will be in competition with each other. But I also think each one also does have sort of a dedicated and built-in audience, whether it is with the Stephen King fans or the Anne Rice fans. What did you think about the episode? Are you optimistic? Do you think it missed the mark? Definitely let me know down below. And of course, I will be back again to cover it next week. So please do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back again soon with more TV talk. Media Melanie, clicking off.